Hello everyone, and welcome back to today's video. Before we start, I would just like to give the video a reminder for everyone here to consider subscribing if you enjoy the content I put out, and of course like the videos as well. You have all killed it on the views and likes on the previous videos, so there's definitely interest, which is always great to see. And of course, join my Discord, link will be in the description as always, where we talk all things Elder Scrolls, all things pets, and well, all things. Now let's begin. There are many joinable factions in the Elder Scrolls games, all that come with their own unique storyline with various sets of allies, enemies, and my favorite, the unique weapons and armor sets you can get from progressing through these storylines. These factions vary in terms of operations and their goals, from building honor and prestige amongst the citizens of Tamriel through the use of strength or magic, to earning money through operations in the dark, ones that could also seem illegal by the law. Speaking of dark, the faction we'll be going through today will be the Dark Brotherhood, a group of assassins who are hired to kill targets in the form of contracts. They have a very rich history of Tamriel, as they were once very feared by the general population, with many not wanting to acknowledge them in fear that they themselves might get killed. The Dark Brotherhood are loyal followers of Sithis, god of death. They are sworn to uphold the tenement of chaos. They are vicious foes to those who would follow the roads of law, often patrolling outer paths and byways for unwary travelers. It is said that the Brotherhood does not associate with any other group, contesting that even the necromancers are not true to word of the dark god. They instead work towards what they call a pure form of chaos. Few have faced them with their souls intact. Now, of course, they can't just go killing whoever they like, at least while in servitude to the Dark Brotherhood, and as such, structure and regulation is required. For the Dark Brotherhood, this was done through the Five Tenets, 5 laws that must be followed by all those who are in the Dark Brotherhood. They go as follows. Tenet 1. Never dishonor the Night Mother. To do so is to invoke the wrath of Sithis. Tenet 2. Never betray the Dark Brotherhood or its secrets. To do so is to invoke the wrath of Sithis. Tenet 3. Never disobey or refuse to carry out an order from a Dark Brotherhood superior. To do so is to invoke the wrath of Sithis. Tenet 4. Never steal the possessions of a Dark Brother or Dark Sister. To do so is to invoke the wrath of Sithis. Tenet 5. Never kill a Dark Brother or Dark Sister. To do so is to invoke the wrath of Sithis. Look, I get that they want the consistency, but honestly, they could have done it without adding the second part to every single tenet. It would have been nice to put it in subtitles below saying, to do so is to invoke the wrath of Sithis, but nonetheless, let's continue. Like many factions, there is usually an inner circle-esque sub-faction within the Dark Brotherhood that is known as the Black Hand. Now, in Skyrim, the Black Hand is merely a symbol used by the Dark Brotherhood to relay their messages, but before the events of the Oblivion crisis and during so, this was their main governing structure. The Black Hand was structured like this. The thumb of the hand was represented by the listener, the one who would directly communicate with the Night Mother about contracts for the Dark Brotherhood. The listener would then relay this information to the speakers, who represent the 4 fingers. So very few of the members among the Dark Brotherhood even know about the existence of this inner circle, apart from the roles of the listener and the speakers themselves. But even fewer knew that each of the speakers can also elect their own assassin, who would represent the Silencer. The Silencers have a lot of power because they are free to conduct their business as they see fit, as long as they fit the general requirements of the contract. And for those who are interested to what the Silencers represent in the Black Hand, it's the nails, which is very unexciting, so let's just move on. However, by the events of Skyrim, apart from this young boy who was supposedly trying to summon the Dark Brotherhood in Windhelm, and is almost always the first thing that people talk about when you ask them about rumors around town, the Dark Brotherhood has seemed to be all but forgotten. In fact, this rumor and the possibility of the Dragonborn being targeted by them, although that seems to be few and far between, is the only sign we get of the existence of the Dark Brotherhood by the 4th era. Which is interesting because when a faction has a reputation of being widely feared, you would think people would be talking more about them, at least hinting of their existence more. No, this tells us that by the events of Skyrim, the Dark Brotherhood faction has fallen from grace. So, why was this the case, and what was the Dark Brotherhood like before the events of Skyrim took place? When we think of assassins, we think of hired killers who take on contracts that usually involve the murder of a target, sometimes through specific means to achieve certain goals, in exchange for a lot of money. At least in my experience playing Skyrim, the Dark Brotherhood paid the most money for their jobs. Of course, granted, you can avoid being detected by the guard, since the murder of a citizen will grant you a 1,000 gold bounty from the region. Now, In order to join this group of assassins, one must commit murder of an innocent citizen, in which they will be contracted by a member of the Dark Brotherhood to be initiated into the group. An exception to this would be the Argonians born under the sign of the Shadow, who are offered to the Dark Brotherhood from their birth and trained to become assassins, giving them a lifelong servitude to the faction. Of course, it is also very easy to just declare to them where you are from and why you are there, and some of them will initiate combat, allowing you to avoid that bounty. However, the Dark Brotherhood didn't always operate like this. In fact, the Dark Brotherhood didn't just emerge on its own to start. It started as a branch from a Daedric cult, the Morag Tong, who worshipped the Daedric lord Mephala, later the worship of Sithis and the Night Mother, with the Dark Brotherhood believing Sithis being the representation of the Shadow, the Void itself. Prior to the worship of the Night Mother and Sithis, the Morag Tong were leaderless, and thus the lack of structure prevented them from being a formidable force in the population of Tamriel. Pretty much nobody took them seriously. With the couple's arrival, there was structure within the group and they started to gain notoriety. Now, this is where tensions would rise between members of the Morag Tong. With their growing popularity, people of high status in society would often hire them to assassinate targets, specifically political opponents, in order to maintain their influence. They became specifically notorious within the province of Morrowind, where they were hired to do work between the various Dunmer houses in the midst of political struggles. There are a myriad of theories that talk about how and why the split in Morag Tong occurred, which is a topic of discussion for a different video. But the general idea is that some of those within the Morag Tong did not agree with their continued involvement in Morrowind politics and believed that they should be more like a business, where they will take in contracts despite of who issues them and their reasonings. With this, a number of members created their own group that eventually came to be known as the Dark Brotherhood, a cult that worships the Night Mother and Sithis, but operates as a business, taking in contracts to assassinate targets, from the most clueless peasants to the emperors of Tamriel themselves. These various acts of assassinations caused the group to be feared amongst Tamriel's population, creating the aura that no one is safe. Of course, they will accept contracts from anyone, including of those of high status similar to Morag Tong, but they do not get involved in political struggles, instead carrying out the contract in exchange for a large sum of coin. Have you not heard of the Dark Brotherhood? Of the remorseless guild of paid assassins and homicidal cutthroats? Join us, and you'll find the Dark Brotherhood to be all that and so much more. We are, more than anything, a union of like-minded individuals. In order to contact the Dark Brotherhood, a ritual must be performed known as the Black Sacrament. The Black Sacrament involves an effigy of the intended victim, created from actual body parts, including a heart, skull, bones, and flesh within a circle of candles. To proceed with the ritual, one must stab the entity repeatedly with a dagger rubbed with the petals of a nightshade plant, whilst whispering the plea, sweet mother, send your child unto me, for the sins of the unworthy must be baptized in blood and fear." As gruesome as this ritual may be, even more frightening is its intention, the summoning of a mysterious assassin who some witnesses claim is always clad in a black hooded robe, who will then receive money to kill an innocent victim. This creates a direct link to the Night Mother, who will then relay the request to the listener, who then relays it to the speakers in the Black Hand, or in the case of the Dragonborn, perform the execution themselves. Now, in the events of the first 3 games, the Dark Brotherhood is merely a joinable faction where the main character can accept contracts for sums of money, as is the way of the Dark Brotherhood. However, in the events of Oblivion, we have more of a story. We are introduced to a speaker of the Dark Brotherhood during the Oblivion crisis, Lucien Lachance, and the player becomes a member of the Brotherhood and later down the line, the Silencer for Lachance. In addition to the quest of contracts, we also discover a plot from a member from within the Brotherhood seeking to eliminate the other members of the Black Hand. I hate it. All this lying, all this pretending, Sithis and the Five Tenets be damned. How long do I have to live by their rules? How long before I get my chance? I saw Lucien Lachance yesterday. He was in the sanctuary talking with Oshiva. He was right there. So close I could have severed his spine in less than a heartbeat. Oh mother, never before have I had to exercise such self-control. What's sickeningly ironic is that it was the Dark Brotherhood's discipline that allowed me to restrain myself. I've been a part of their family for so long it's a part of me, whether I like it or not. And in all that time, I fooled them all. They see me as a fellow member of the Brotherhood, a trusted family member. Someday soon I will learn the truth about the Night Mother, and when I do, I will use that trust to get close to her. Close enough so that I may render the head from her body, just as Lucien Lachance did to you so long ago. By the time we come to the events of Skyrim, the Dark Brotherhood has all been but forgotten. which is why when word got out about Aventus Aretius performing the Black Sacrament in Windhelm, it was a pretty big deal. When the events of the Oblivion crisis was over, an army of corsairs who saw an opportunity in the weakened Empire and Tamriel invaded the continent in the Fourth Era. The first sanctuary to fall was the Wayrest Sanctuary in High Rock, simultaneously occurring with the closing of the Corinth Sanctuary in Elsewhere, leaving the members to be relocated to Cheydinhal. Further discord was sown in Cyrodiil when a drug war between two of the largest skooma drug factions occurred, forcing the Dark Brotherhood to move the Night Mother out of Cyrodiil, with the listener at the time, Alysanne Dupree, leaving her home to protect the coffin, along with Garnag, another speaker, and Adranica, another member of the Brotherhood. Unfortunately, their very few numbers caused the listener and Adranica to die, leaving Garnag as the only survivor and had to move the coffin out of Cyrodiil himself. Seeing the opportunity after the death of the listener, Rasha declared himself listener, but could not utter the binding words to confirm his status. So he was killed by Garnag at the request of Cicero, who proceeded to move the coffin to Skyrim and, well, we know what happened to him when we get there. There was no confirmation of Garnag's fate, so if he still lived by the events of Skyrim, he would have been the only known survivor of the Dark Brotherhood outside of Skyrim's borders. This story was documented in the Journal of Cicero and portrayed in the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood DLC in the Elder Scrolls Legends card game, which then brings us to the events of Skyrim. Now, of course, the Dark Brotherhood faction can end right then and there in the beginning if the player decides to inform Commander Morrow of the faction's existence, which will result in the Penitus Oculatus raiding the sanctuary and killing all members of the Brotherhood. Of course, let's say we decided to not go down that route and actually go through the lore of the Brotherhood in the events of Skyrim. Leadership has been taken over by Astrid, who at this point scrapped the laws of the Five Tenets as she believed as leader, she should have control over the operations of the Dark Brotherhood herself. This would eventually accumulate to her performing the Black Sacrament on the Dragonborn, which ultimately resulted in her death, and the transferring of the coffin of the Night Mother to the Dawnstar Sanctuary, and the start of the regrowth of the guild, after the elaborate plan to kill the Emperor of Tamriel, Emperor Titus Mede II. And once more, I prove Commander Morrow the fool. I told him you can't stop the Dark Brotherhood. Never could. How it will go in Elder Scrolls 6, I guess we'll just have to sit, wait, and find out when it comes. Whew, that was a doozy. That kind of summarizes the Dark Brotherhood. It's pretty obvious that there are many details and stories left out of this that involve the Dark Brotherhood's deeds throughout Tamriel. But my plan is to cover all those stories in their own separate videos since I believe they deserve their own spotlight. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like so I know that you all like Dark Brotherhood lore along with the rest of the Elder Scrolls. As well as subscribing to the channel so you can be caught up with more videos and ringing that post notification bell so you know when they are uploaded. I also have a Discord channel going on, so come join and hang out and have a good time. Link will be in the description. Other than that, this is Enzo signing out, and I will see you all in the next lore video.